$12,000. Gone. Just because your insurance says the mast wires are 10 years old. Never mind that your standing rigging looks flawless and has not sailed a mile in years. This is the 10-year rigging myth, where perfect steel is condemned by a calendar, not by science. Metallurgists warn the real threat is cycles, not time. So why do insurers insist you throw away stronger, proven steel for untested replacements? Unpacking this could save your wallet and your safety. Here is what their rules never tell you. A letter arrives from the insurer. The language is blunt. Standing rigging must be replaced every 10 years to maintain coverage. Non-compliance will result in policy cancellation. There is no mention of how often the boat sails, how many storms it has seen, or whether the wires gleam like new under the sun. The only thing that matters is the date stamped on a spreadsheet. Attached is the quote from the rigger: $12,000 for a 40-foot sloop. The estimate lists every shroud, every stay, every swage fitting, labor, materials, haul-out fees, the works. The number is not a suggestion. It is an ultimatum. Pay or lose your insurance. For some owners, that is the difference between keeping a boat and putting it up for sale. The rule is universal. It makes no distinction between a boat that circumnavigated the globe, racking up millions of stress cycles, and one that sat quietly at the dock, enduring nothing but the occasional sea breeze and the weight of its own mast. Both are judged by the same clock. 10 years, no exceptions. There is no explanation of risk, no technical justification. The insurer's logic is simple: old rigging equals high risk. But the evidence is never shown. No surveyor has inspected your wires, no dye penetrant has touched your swages. The calendar alone is the judge and jury. Owners are left with a choice that feels less like maintenance and more like a shakedown. The invoice is real. The threat is real. The steel, paradoxically, is as good as new. The only thing that is expired is the insurer's patience for nuance. For thousands of boat owners, this is not a warning, it is a demand. And it comes with a price tag you cannot ignore. A boat that spends its life at the dock gathers dust, not danger. Its standing rigging, the stainless steel wires and fittings that hold the mast up, endures little more than the gentle sway of the tide. In a typical year, the load cycles on that steel barely register. The wires support the mast's weight, but the forces are static, unchanged day after day. For these docked vessels, the number of stress cycles can be counted in the thousands, spread thinly over a decade. Now compare that to the neighbor's boat, the one that circumnavigated the globe. Every crossing, every storm, every night under sail, the rigging flexes and strains. A round-the-world voyage racks up millions of cycles, each tack, each gust, each rolling wave adding microscopic stress to the steel. The metal remembers every one. After 40,000 miles at sea, that rigging has lived a full and punishing life. Yet the rulebook makes no distinction. The insurer's demand lands on both owners with the same weight. 10 years is 10 years, whether the boat has crossed oceans or sat in a slip behind the house. The owner who polishes every fitting, who has never seen a broken strand or a spot of rust, gets the same ultimatum as the sailor whose rigging bears the scars of hard miles. The logic is blunt. The calendar is the only measure that counts. This is what frustrates careful owners. A decade-old wire on a docked boat is not the same as a decade-old wire that has circled the planet. The science of fatigue says cycles matter, not just time. But the insurance policy does not care about cycles. It does not care about maintenance logs or the fact that some wires have never seen more than a stiff breeze. The rule treats all steel as if it ages at the same pace, regardless of what it has endured. For thousands of owners, that is not just unfair, it is irrational. Standing rigging is the system of stainless steel wires and fittings that hold a sailboat's mast upright. These are not the ropes you pull to trim sails. They are the permanent supports, the shrouds that run from the mast to the deck on each side, and the stays that run forward and aft. Each wire ends in a fitting, most often a swage, a metal collar crimped under enormous pressure that locks the wire to a threaded stud or a fork. The wire itself is usually 1x19 construction, 19 strands twisted together for maximum strength and minimum stretch. It is tough, but it is not the wire that usually fails. Almost every catastrophic rigging failure starts at a fitting. The swage is a stress concentrator. Inside, microscopic cracks can form where the wire meets the compressed metal. Over time, or with repeated flexing, those cracks can grow. The wire midspan, out in the open, rarely breaks unless it has been physically damaged or corroded. Most failures occur hidden inside the swage, where you cannot see them without magnification or special testing. This is why surveyors and riggers focus their inspections on the swages, not the wires. A clean, shiny wire tells only half the story. The real risk is at the ends, where the geometry of the fitting and the forces of the mast combine to create the perfect conditions for fatigue and corrosion. If you want to know whether your rigging is safe, you have to inspect the fittings first. Steel does not fail because a calendar flips. It fails because of cycles, repeated loading and unloading. Metallurgists call this fatigue, and it is easy to demonstrate. Take a paperclip and bend it back and forth. Each bend is a cycle. At first, nothing happens, but after enough cycles, the metal heats up, hardens, and finally snaps. That is work hardening in action. Now, hold a paperclip still for a decade. It does not break. Time alone does nothing. The science behind this is mapped on what is called the SN curve, stress versus number of cycles. There is a threshold. Keep the stress below a certain point, and steel can survive millions, even billions of cycles without failing. For 316 stainless, the kind used in yacht rigging, that endurance limit sits well above the forces a docked boat ever sees. Boats that spend years at the dock accumulate almost no cycles. Under that low static load, rigging could last indefinitely. Only when the stress rises, in storm sailing or ocean crossings, does the cycle count start to climb. This is why the 10-year rule makes no technical sense. It ignores the actual cause of failure: cycles, not time. A boat that has not left its slip is as safe on year 11 as it was on day 1, so long as the steel remains below that fatigue threshold. Steel wire isn't the only part of the rigging at risk. The real danger often hides inside the swage fittings, the metal collars that clamp the wire to the boat's hardware. In those tight crevices, oxygen cannot reach between the wire and the fitting. In a marine environment, that sealed pocket becomes a breeding ground for trouble. Salt water seeps in and fresh oxygen does not. Over time, chlorides from seawater attack the stainless steel, creating pits deep inside the fitting where no amount of polishing can reach. This is called crevice corrosion, and it is invisible until it is advanced. Even the best 316 grade stainless steel cannot fight back if it is starved of oxygen. The corrosion eats the metal from the inside out, often right where the wire enters the swage, the same spot that already suffers the highest stress. The result is a double threat. Chemical attack softens the steel, while stress concentrations make it more likely to crack. Most catastrophic rigging failures begin here, hidden from view, with no warning on the outside. A fitting can look perfect and still be on the verge of failure. That is why surveyors focus so much attention on the ends of the rigging. Not all threats are visible, and not all corrosion leaves a stain. The real risk is what you cannot see until it is too late. Rigging used to be crafted in small batches, stamped out by foundries in the US and Europe, where every spool of wire and every swage fitting was traceable back to its source. The riggers knew the names of the men who pressed the fittings. Quality control meant more than a sticker on a crate, it meant a reputation on the line. Today, most standing rigging is mass-produced in sprawling factories overseas. The majority of stainless wire and swages now come from low-cost regions where production lines run day and night to fill global orders. The old foundries have closed or shifted focus. Now, Hardware is poured, drawn, and pressed by machines programmed for volume, not for vigilance. Many riggers have noticed the difference. They will tell you about inconsistent swage diameters, wire that feels slightly rougher, or fittings with faint tool marks left behind. Some report batches where the stainless does not polish quite the same, or where a fitting fails a simple gauge test straight out of the box. There is less transparency about sourcing, and even experienced surveyors cannot always tell which lot of fitting came from. The shift to mass production means more variability. Not every piece is flawed, but the tight controls that define the old gear are harder to guarantee. For a boat owner, this raises a new question. Does replacing proven, inspected rigging with brand new hardware from an anonymous factory really make your boat safer? The answer is not as clear as the insurance policy suggests. A brand new set of rigging does not guarantee peace of mind. In fact, the risk of early failure is highest in the first year after installation, a reality known in engineering as the Bathtub Curve. Most failures happen at the very beginning or at the very end of a component's life. The middle years are the safest. But those first months, that is where hidden manufacturing defects, poor swaging, or misaligned fittings reveal themselves. I remember a 44-foot boat rigged with fresh wire and swages from a reputable supplier. Less than 8 months after stepping the mast, the owner called me in a panic. The boat had lost its rig in a moderate squall. The investigation found a hairline crack running through the swage fitting, an internal flaw from the factory invisible to the naked eye. The wire was flawless. The fitting, brand new, had failed long before any cycle count or corrosion could be blamed. This is not an isolated story. Surveyors see it every year. New hardware installed to satisfy insurance breaks before old proven gear ever would. The lesson is clear. Replacing rigging on a schedule does not eliminate risk. It trades one kind of uncertainty for another. The only way to know your rig is safe is to inspect it, whether it is a decade old or straight from the box. Blind replacement can actually raise the odds of failure in the first season. That is why inspection is not just an alternative, it is a necessity. Dye penetrant testing begins with a clean, polished swage. Any oil or residue is wiped away, leaving bare stainless steel exposed. The red dye is sprayed directly onto the fitting, seeping into every microscopic flaw. After 10 minutes, the excess dye is removed with a lint-free cloth. A white developer coat follows, forming a powdery layer over the metal. If there is a crack, the dye bleeds back through, leaving a sharp red line against the white. No bleed means no surface-breaking crack, just clean steel. Next comes the magnifier. A jeweler's loupe at 10 times magnification is pressed to the swage shoulder, scanning for pits, hairline cracks, or black streaks. The loupe reveals what the naked eye misses: the fine grain of the metal, the crisp edge where wire meets fitting. Any sign of pitting, even a faint groove, is cause for a closer look. The cotton test is last. A strand of soft white cotton is drawn slowly along the wire. If every strand is intact, the cotton glides smoothly. But a single broken wire will snag the fibers, catching like a fishhook. This simple test finds breaks invisible to sight or touch. Each step is repeatable and documented. Photos of the dye test, close-ups through the loupe, video of the cotton pass. The process leaves no room for guesswork. It is not about trusting a calendar, it is about trusting evidence. If the steel passes, it stays. If it fails, there is proof in hand. The surveyor stands at the workbench, inspection report in hand. Each swage fitting has been checked with dye penetrant, no red bleed, no sign of a crack. The loupe found no pitting, no hairline fractures at the shoulders. The cotton test glided across every wire, not a single snag. Measurements with the caliper match the manufacturer's spec, no deformation, no necking. Each step is documented. Photographs of the dye test, close-ups through the magnifier, written notes on every fitting. The report lists every pass and fail criterion, no linear indications over 1 mm, no pitting deeper than 0.5 mm, no broken strands. The evidence is clear and complete. With the inspection finished, the surveyor signs off. Standing rigging meets all safety criteria. No replacement required at this time. The signature carries weight, accepted by insurers willing to look at facts, not just the calendar. For this boat, the steel earns another year of service. The pass is not a guess or a gamble. It is a verdict based on direct evidence, not a superstition about age. If a single crack had shown up, the report would have called for immediate replacement, no hesitation, no compromise on safety. But today, the rigging stands proven. The calendar may say 10 years, but the steel says it is ready for more. For owners, this is the line in the sand. Inspection, not blind replacement, is the only honest way to judge the life left in stainless rigging. The decision is made by the evidence, visible, testable, and signed by a professional who has climbed enough masts to know the difference between risk and routine. The steel passes. The case is closed. Right now, thousands of tons of flawless stainless steel hit the landfill every year, not because science demands it, but because policy does. As insurers cling to outdated rules, owners pay the price in wasted resources and needless risk. Until evidence, not bureaucracy, sets the standard, the cycle continues. The next cut you make could be more about profit than protection. What's your take? Drop a comment below.